I'm going to show you guys how we utilize the sand to teach athletes about their high-speed running mechanics. There are two different ways that we use the sand in training athletes for speed. This method here is for high velocity, max speed mechanics, and the other one is for early acceleration mechanics. One really important thing is that running repeatedly in the sand will not necessarily make you faster. It is a teaching tool, it's a sensory tool, it's a feedback tool. So use it to help yourself to feel what your mechanics are doing and then apply it on flat ground, on the turf, on the track, on the grass, because it is still considered a resisted type run. You can't expect to run slowly and get faster all the time. So don't use it as a training tool as much as you will use it as a feedback teaching tool. So I'm going to show you what to look for and what it does for you. So for max velocity mechanics, we're looking to start outside of the pit. You're going to get a running start and run into and through the entire length of the sand pit. We have an extra long sand pit here, but you can use a track and field jump pit. You can use a sand volleyball court. For the early acceleration method, you would run the width of the sand volleyball court. If you were doing this method, you could run through the length of the court. So here's the running start into the sand. You're going to sprint through as quickly but as smoothly as possible. So your goal here is to not sink as you run through the sand and not slow down. You need to have front side lift, toe up, hip up in the front where you can have a top down foot strike. We say attack the ground from the top. So if you're able to do this well enough, you should see a strike that comes straight down and strikes under the hip and then pushes away. So here's what you're looking for. You're gonna see good front side lift, hip up, toe up in the front. Ideally, you will see this front foot strike straight down as your body's moving forward, and it'll land directly under the hip. And by that time, the opposite recovery leg has already passed that support leg that's on the ground. So it's ready to repeat the process on the opposite side. As that foot strikes under the hip, you're gonna see a slight push away. And after that push away, the opposite leg is already in that same position, ready to repeat the process. So if you see someone doing this correctly, they will almost look like they're floating across the sand, and there won't be much sand being kicked up, and they won't lose any speed as they go through the sand. If they have poor mechanics or they fail to do this, let's say they have, a low hip in the front, they heel strike out in front of them, then you'll see them kicking the sand all over the place. They will slow down as they progress through the sand, and it'll just be kind of a mess. And also you can see their hip level, and they'll start to sink into the sand as well. So here you see that again. It's always a top down foot strike directly under the hip and a small push away. And by that time, the opposite leg is already in position to repeat the process, top down, attacking from the top, top down, top down, top down. It's always a small push away, and they will essentially just float across the sand with no slowdown. So you notice when you play it in full speed, it just seems like you're gliding across the top. Very little sand being kicked up. I will say that you cannot continue to run through the sand rep after rep and expect your speed to improve on the track or on the field. You should follow this up with reps on the flat ground, on the turf, on the grass, on the track, so that you can apply what this feels like and apply it and practice it on flat ground. So here you see one rep of running on the turf barefoot still, but you see the same mechanics, but it's even more efficient on the flat ground because there's no give, there's less resistance. So you see the same thing, good front side lift, active foot strike, straight below the hip, the push away, and by that time the opposite knee has recovered, the opposite hip's recovered, and it's ready to repeat the process. So it's a strike down, top down, push away, strike down, push away. Good front side. I'm going to put out another video that explains how we use the sandpit for early acceleration. So look out for that.